Hello, everyone, and I'm Gemma Starr, and welcome to another episode of Heart Warriors. This is a series I've been inspired and guided to do thanks to my energetic connection with Katajuda. Katajuda is the beautiful sacred masculine site in Central Australia, very close to Uluru, our sacred feminine site. And it's these energies that are coming through now really powerfully to bring unity, healing, and love and freedom into our new earth. What I'm here to do is to give a platform to our men so they can speak man to man with other men watching about their journey into the heart, their experiences, their insights, wisdom, knowledge, tools, practices, or what have they learned along the way that they can now share with other men walking this path. And of course, us women who are walking right there beside them. Today's guest is a man from America, and his name is Jason Michael Powers. Jason Michael is a soul and love relationship coach. He's also a producer and a very acclaimed speaker. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with Jason Michael today and hearing about his journey into the heart. Enjoy. Hello, Jason Michael. Welcome to Heart Warriors.
Thank you, Gemma. Good to be with you. Such an honor. Thank you for inviting me into this, I think, one of the most important conversations we can be having.
Definitely. Our men are rising, truth, heart, and spine. And it's just beautiful because as our men rise, our women rise, and this is what unity is about. I'm so excited about this. But I'm also so excited to find out about you and your journey into the heart. Can we start with, how would you describe the man here with us today?
Well, I've been chewing on that because I've caught a few videos and I've been like, what would I say? That's such a big question. I'm a father of a 16-year-old. I'm a husband. I'm an ex-husband. I'm a friend to many. I've been a mobile DJ producer for 3 decades. I'm a relationship coach, a soul guide, a mystic. But I think ultimately one of my heroes of the Bible is King David. And it was said after David, he's a man after God's own heart. And I think that would be encompassing, kind of who I am today. Doing my best to stay in the heart. And that's why I love your show, because it is about the heart and journeying into the heart. And so a man after God's own heart, I would say.
Thank you for that. Now, I wonder if we could dig a little deeper there. What adjectives would you use to describe yourself? So apart from how is the inside, Michael?
Adjectives.
Jason.
I told you.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's totally okay. I get called Michael, Jason, hey guy, hey brother. Adjectives, I would say passionate, playful, loving, fierce when needed to be, loyal, crunchy at times. Rightly wounded, I would say, right? Like a fracture of a diamond. I've got my wounds, and I'm very aware of the places where there's cuts. A healer. Peaceful, present. I think that will do for now.
That's so beautiful. And, I resonate with that being very much, qualities of the divine masculine, the healthy masculine, the healed or healing masculine. So definitely qualities that I look forward to all men grounding in these new energies. So I was interested, the one that jumped out for me was the one that you said about wounded righteousness. Can we
wounded rightly, wounded in a way that, there's like, there's soul scars, there's these wounds, these cuts. So I don't play victim to them. I just say rightly wounded. They're a dear friend of mine has a company called Where the Light Gets In. And so it's those wounds that are the right places in my heart that where only God's love has been the right balm, the right healing.
Yeah, and didn't Rumi say the wound is where the light enters?
Exactly. There you
Yeah,
go. Yeah. So that's what I mean by rightly wounded.
lovely. Well, let's go back to your childhood. What was the first wound that you remembered as being a significant point of your healing journey?
I think um, it's interesting because when I was 10 years old, I met my biological father for the first time. It was my mom's 10-year high school reunion. She had me when she was 19 years old in 1970, which wasn't as popular as it is today. And I didn't know the man that my mom was married to when I was 3 years old or so. Wasn't my real father, but I always kind of noticed my brother and sister didn't look quite like me. And my mom didn't meet her father uh, ever. And I think my grandmother never met her father. So my mom was going to break tradition and go, no, what? I already broke the mold by being a male, the first one of three matriarchs of generations. But my mom said, I'm going to have him meet his father when he's 10. And I met him, and that wasn't the wound. It was the wound that followed afterwards, really, of I didn't see him again until I was 16, 23, 40. And so I found myself wanting that desire for a father that I never got a chance to have a relationship with, who didn't want to have a relationship with me. And so it was chasing father's love for most of my life, for most of my young life, teen life, not understanding why father didn't love me or want to be with me. And so that was the first, I think, big wound.
That must have been difficult. Yes. So I'm interested now with your healed aspect in retrospect. What gift do you think that brought you, and how did you heal that?
Such an important question, Gemma. Thank you. Um, I remember a spiritual mentor of mine many years ago. We have our story. This is my story. I come from here and I've told this story. This is a story of, and she asked that question, if you could rewrite your story? And I didn't want to give up my story. And so I learned how to really look at what were the gifts. And I can tell you the gift of not having that human father's love, it led me on a spiritual quest. It led me looking for the Father, the presence, the power of love itself. And that's been quite a journey from going deep into traditional Christian path. I didn't grow up with a family that went to church, but I wanted to know who God was. I wanted to know who Jesus was. I wanted to know what the Holy Spirit was. I wanted to know what this thing was. And it's led me, 30 years or so of a quest of learning what that is and continuing to hold loosely to what that is, because none of us can truly define God. But it's put me into communion with that presence deeper and deeper. And that would say, I truly believe that was the gift, that was the karmic gift of my lifetime here, is to create that. So how did I do that? By just asking the question, who are you, God? I want to know you. I want to know who you are in all your facets, in the dark and in the light, in the feminine and the masculine, in the anger and in the joy. And it's still evolving. I haven't arrived, but I do know that I have that intimate relationship because I think looking for that love. It's been quite a journey in that seeking. And I don't think I'm seeking as much anymore. I feel like I've settled into a place where I know I can tap into that at any moment.
That's so fascinating. And I'm really interested now, Jason Michael, how maybe if that quest started in your teenage years to where you are now, how is that, how you would define God evolved?
These are big questions. You know, I it's simple in the simple way. It's the breath for me, the aloha, that breath that connects us, that always is there breathing me. And I don't have to try to breathe. I just breathe. Um, in that space, it shows up in so many ways. You know, I only have 2 tattoos on my body, and they're numbers. God speaks to me in numbers. And I have 1111 tattooed right here. And then I have 007 because I spent years as a James Bond impersonator traveling the world being James Bond for private events. And that was a fun job and a fun journey, a chapter in my life. But and that still is a code, you know, where God winks at me with the 007. No longer am I a secret agent man. I jokingly say I'm a secret angel man. And you know, to define what God is, I think is really challenging. But ultimately, it's the presence of love that I have with anything and everything. It's a force. It's an intelligence. It's soft. It's rough. It's all of it. It's light. It's dark.
Yeah, and I'm also interested to clarify, because you did make some Bible references. Are you referring to the Christian biblical church idea of God, or are you more a spiritual God is?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yes, let me be very, very clear. Yeah. I started my spiritual path at 16 years old, going to the God of the Bible. And that's what I knew. And that's what in 97, I left that. And when the towers went down in 2001, something shifted inside of me and I missed prayer. I loved to pray. I would go up to the mountains just to pray to God, just to be in communion with God. And it wasn't necessarily so much supplication, but it was more of a conversation. And I missed that connection. And so, because I wasn't going to church, I wasn't in a Bible study, I left all that. I couldn't go back to that. I did that. And now, where is God? How do I find God? And so I picked up a CD by Dr. Wayne Dyer called Manifestation Through Meditation. It was 20 minutes of Om in the morning and 20 minutes of Ah at night. It was just hearing Wayne in my head go, oh. And the first night I meditated, I wept. I said, there you are, God. You're right here in my bedroom with my Nag Champa in my private. And I knew that God was with me everywhere I went. It wasn't in the temple or the church or the mosque. It was just here in my heart. And that is the place where I find God, is right in my own heart and in the hearts of others, in the souls and the light of eyes of another, in the animal, in the tree, in the stones, in the butterflies, and the birds, and the hawks, and in all of it. And so it's no longer limited to that. And it is that, I don't have a desire to ever go back into that small box for me. But it's consistently evolving into, I spent a lot of my journey working with the ascended masters, working with the angelic presences, working with the I am, and understanding that. And it's all that. And I've had to shrink it down into practical, like into the human and the divine married as one, the spirit and matter in my body form. And so, God is such a big word to me, but it is the all that if I could leave a legacy in the world, it's to believe in the love of God. I think our world has turned away from God because of all the damage that the church has done in a lot of ways. And God is real, God is true, God is now. And to just open our hearts to connect and commune with that presence has been a game changer in my life.
I know I had difficulty with the word God only because it has so many religious connotations that it actually took me a while on my spiritual journey to even be able to start using it. I was the universe or consciousness or energy or love, But so I feel it is important for people to feel into the word God and not define it as you know, some man sitting in the cloud, some judgmental, overbearing ruler. So I loved your explanation. Thank you so much. Jason Michael, what would you say to men who are in this place where they're looking for God and they haven't found him yet? What can they do to find him in their hearts the way that you did?
Get quiet, be still and know I am. I remember seeing something, we've heard that, be still and know I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. That was where I found God, is in the silence, in the quiet of my mind. You know, we say, it's been said, we have 35 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of the time they're the same thoughts. And if we can just come to a place where we can quiet our mind a little bit in between, is like, I heard one of my heroes, and I'll probably say him a few times, I just find myself talking about him, is Dr. Wayne Dyer. You know, the space, the music is not, it's between the notes, it's in the moments, it's in that gap where I found God. And to get quiet, to just start meditating, just whatever that is. There's no right or wrong way to meditate. There's many paths that you can go into meditation, and it doesn't matter what you call God, just call it often. Get into communion. Like I spent years, about 10 years in the New Thought world, into science of mind. And I became a practitioner of religious science. And I find myself sometimes in the New Thought movements, it becomes it's just energy. God is energy. God is a frequency. God is this, ephemeral thing I can't have a relationship with. And that's, I've learned this phrase of courting the beloved, like court the presence of God, commune with the presence. So just sit. It's like anything, any relationship. Go on a date, go by a river, go up in the mountains, go sit by a tree. I mean, the Buddha did it. Like, just sit by a tree and just have a moment and just be still and breathe. You don't have to close your eyes. Just sit there for a good 10, 11 minutes and watch what happens, and just begin there. I think that would be the best way.
I love it. Thank you so much for that. Very powerful. Let's jump now to your adulthood. Jason Michael, what would you say was your deepest, darkest, rock bottom moment?
I would say when my first marriage ended. I got married at 33, 35, actually. Dated this beautiful being I met on Match.com, online dating. Women, I've been on stage, Gemma, for most of my life, but women scared the crap out of me. I was terrified of women. I had, they were the great mystery, but I was afraid of marriage because I'd seen it fail, and I didn't want to just get married to anybody. And I waited, and I married an amazing woman. It's the mother of my son, 5505 in St. John in the Virgin Islands. And I thought it was going to be forever. And as time went on, we had our son. It nearly killed them both. He was a premature baby born 10 weeks early. And since the birth of him, our marriage started taking a different journey. I went deeper into my practice, and I felt like she went deeper into fear and scared, and our energies just started drifting apart. And so when my son was about 5 or so, the marriage started dwindling. We've been to 4 therapists, and so for me, that was the darkest time of going, I didn't get married to have a divorce. And we did our best to divorce with a lot of consciousness, not mean. We're still friends to this day, but I think that was one of the darkest times of, I was just about 40, I think, if I'm certain, right? So yeah, it was just a time of going, where am I going? What am I doing? I renting a room, financially wasn't in a good place, and just wondering, what am I doing here? And that was a dark time back in 2011.
Jason Michael, can I take you back into that time, and can you remember your emotions, what you were feeling?
I would say fear, fear, self-loathing, um, and excitement. I don't know what's around the corner. There was a little bit of that, but a lot of just anxiousness, self-loathing. Like, who am I? I failed. Love failed, um, and it was a time where and this is the raw and real, and I share this very openly many times. You know, I spent a couple of years in Sexaholics Anonymous. I've been, addicted to pornography, a lot of my life. When I found the pornography at 10 years old, when my dad's mags, and he was my stepfather who raised me until I was 16, was a raging alcoholic. And we lived in a hellacious environment. And so I found porn as it created these neural pathways of pleasure in pain. And so I know that really hurt my son's mom in our marriage, and I went to recovery, and I sought help. It didn't help the marriage, and that's why I knew this wasn't good. I was doing the work to dig in and go, okay, what is going on inside of me? It's what led me to shadow work, to be honest with you. I read Debbie Ford's Dark Side of the Light Chasers and started going, what is this? Even when I was in the Christian church, like, God, what is this? You've given me this energy, this desire, but no one's talking about it. And so it's been a constant humbling challenge, a thorn in my side, of that energy of lust. That I know that's what ruined my marriage. There wasn't any infidelity, but there was just not trust in the marriage, and I knew that was a big part of the destruction of that marriage. And having a 5-year-old son, and I'm just caring for him, and how's he going to do? How's he going to grow up in a broken home? And I can say to this day we're doing good now, but it's been a journey.
I'd like to expand on your experience of this because of the pornography and how it affected your first marriage. Because I'm sure this is a massive, topic out there that is touching so many men and relationships. I'd like you to speak to those men, please, from your understanding now on the other side of that, and also if you have a understanding of the feminine, your ex-wife's perspective, and how that affected her. Could you please speak to that?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for calling this forth. This is, you asked what title for the show, and it's From Karma to Dharma, the Power of Love. The karmic loops, I know, and I can probably feel into this for lifetimes. I say King David's my hero. I mentioned that earlier. David is known in the Bible as the one who lusted after Bathsheba, and ended up killing his best friend because he lusted after the beauty known as Bathsheba. And it feels like there's this, quest in my soul to come into, rightly wounded, as I said. Like, there's a wound that's like, okay, this is where God's love it's the only thing that can get me through it. So, no judgment on it. I know that pornography is not good for me. And scientifically, what it does to the brain, it's dopamine. It creates distortions around sex. It creates distrust in our relationships with those we love. And I know that, my first wife, I was her first, real long distance, long-term relationship. And that didn't produce trust in her. And it just hurts the feminine. It hurts when in that capacity. It creates distrust. Um, and this is just for me. Take what I say and leave the rest. But what I can say is that for me, purity is my peace, it's my power, it's my prosperity. And having that monogamous relationship for me is what's worked to have a pure portal of this power, of sexual energy, that leaking it out to anything else, I know Either we learn the word halt, you're hungry, you're angry, you're lonely, or you're tired, or you're bored, or you're just not, and you're leaking it that out there. But it's that check in when if you're finding yourself wanting to go to lustful images, check in with yourself. What's going on? Are you bored? Are you frustrated? Are you feeling not respected? Are you feeling depressed? And we're seeking pain and pleasure. They're sitting there on two sides of the coin. And we think, we think that's going to give us the pleasure, but it's that dopamine hit that ends up let down. And then we're in this letdown for a long time. And so, yeah, that's I guess a little bit. I don't know if there's more on that.
No, that's a great start. Now, what was your ex-wife conveying were her reasons that you mentioned lack of trust. So did you get an understanding into where the feminine was coming from when she spoke of a lack of trust towards a man she's close to that's also using pornography?
Yeah. And I want to add, this isn't just my ex-wife. This is my current wife as well. I include Heather in here because this is the constant conversation that we're always, diving into the wound of how, when we first met in 2013, we knew that sex, money, and power, they're all three very closely tied. And so speaking for these two main women in my life, I can tell you that it just doesn't help. I mean, pornography is ruining our world, hands down. It's not helping. And it's ruining the image that women have. I know that my son's mom and even Heather, it's that it feeds into their not enoughness. It feeds into their feeling of their own value, their own body. If I'm looking to other women and seeking, linking it, whether it's two-dimensional or not, it's creating that energetic relationship, and they can feel it. They feel it when that's broken. And it's this place where this can build such incredible shame and guilt for us men, whether you're conscious of it. I know for me, when I left the church, it was a taboo, obviously, in the church. I was confessing my sin all the time to my brothers, and when there I slipped again, I masturbated to porn, or whatever that was. And and I'm not here to tell the brothers, masturbation and pornography are wrong for you. But if you really check in, when I said no more rules, I can tell you, if I just let myself go, I'm just going to masturbate to pornography today. I didn't want to meditate. I didn't want to do anything creative. I was zapped out, and I would probably smoke weed and play video games. Those are the three goblins that go for me when those three are hand in hand. And so going back to your question to what's it doing to the feminine, it's just they're not, I really truly believe that a woman wants to feel protected and guarded and safe. And when we're leaking that energy out there, they don't feel protected, guarded, or safe. And I was in the hospital at the end of 21, 10 days with double pneumonia. I started watching an incredible series called The Wheel of Time. If you haven't seen that, I encourage you to watch that. And in the story, there's these guardians of these amazing magical women. And they're not in partnership necessarily, some may be, but they are there as guardians of these women. And it reminded me of a code of chivalry that means a lot to my heart, the chivalric code of truly what the guardian of the Grail is. And it is guarding that sacred energy. And a woman feels that. She feels it in her body. And when it's not being guarded, she feels it in her body. And we have a big Titanic to move. And I'm not perfect. I slip, I fall. It's something that I'm here to tell you that I understand, brother. If you're listening to me, I don't come as one who's a Puritan. Purity is not, we can have amazing transcending sex. And it's not about that. It's about just, when I met Heather, I closed the door. I said, this is the woman I want to work with. This is the dharmic path I want to go on. And we work this stuff out and get to the root of the core wound. I think when we're looking for pornography, The joke is looking for love in all the wrong places. We're looking for love in all the wrong faces. We're looking for something to fulfill us, and that is so empty. And it's only service to self. It's not service to other. There's no service to other in that. Um, and so not to bring shame or guilt upon anyone that's listening to me, but it's that place of going, let's examine this. Why are we doing what we're doing? And how is it affecting the one we say we love?
Yeah, and I'd just also like to ask you, how does it pornography ultimately disconnect you from the physical relationship that you're in, as in intimacy wise, when you are making love to your physical woman? Like, does pornography teach you, fast, furious, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am? Whereas whether that might have its moments in a physical relationship, it's also the cultivation of the intimacy and the depth and the closeness. Have you got
100%.
to say about how pornography affects the true divine union of coming together in the lovemaking process, the physical lovemaking process?
Absolutely. And this has been our work, Heather and I, with the clients that we work with, because once again, I understand the addiction. I understand why and what it has done to, we're not educated on what true love making is. We learn our parts. We may learn sex ed in maybe in class, or maybe our parents told us about the birds and the bees, but most men are learning about sex in pornography. And our path today, and if you've never heard this term, the word carezza is such a potent pathway for us of learning how to uh, make love, but without goal-oriented climaxing. And so it becomes a whole another path. Not to say never have an orgasm again, but there's a 2-week cycle that happens when a man has an orgasm. And so our dopamine levels are high, and then we have an orgasm, and then and we're going for it, and our women feel depleted. We feel depleted, and literally what's happening is the neurochemistry of our brains, both of us are going, and now we find ourselves in a passion cycle, and we're fighting, we're bickering. They don't look so pleasant, they're kind of annoying, and we think that lovemaking is going to get it again, and we have an orgasm again. And it's so there's a whole nother path that we're passionate about sharing, and that I have been so grateful in. And you can keep that dopamine. Dopamine isn't bad, but introducing oxytocin, putting that oxy, which is called the cuddle hormone, when you're touching and you're caressing. Caressa is Latin for caress. And so we're bonding, we're eye gazing, we're massaging. I'm not massaging her to have an orgasm. It's a new way. And so I was just telling Heather, I'm like, gosh, I wish we could get this into the young men and women in schools, because this would save so much of the disaster of divorce, the disaster of sexual distortions that are going on in relationships, to teach this path of Tourette's. Excuse me, get some water. This is a hot and spicy conversation. So, yes, pornography is not helpful in understanding what true lovemaking is. There's the Taoist, path of sexual kung fu. I've dabbled in that and understand. Now, I will tell you, Gemma, when I started understanding sacred sexuality, this was when I was in my first marriage. I was like, wait a second, sex isn't bad. What the Christians taught me, sex is good. I mean, I would say God equals sex. God is sexual. That is the energy. It is the creational energy. And it's a great power, and it can destroy and it can create, and how we harness it. But understanding the path of sacred sexuality is an ongoing quest. And I knew when Heather and I first met, we both knew that we had things to heal. Heather herself, she shares this openly, so I'm not saying anything that she wouldn't share. But she had 2 marriages. She cheated on her. She's cheated on her husbands, and that she was mischievous. She was a pastor's kid. Kind of goes hand in hand. We both came together to heal these ancient wounds, and and to create a safe container where this energy can be held in a sacred divine container. And it's a prayer language of sorts. No longer, let me just get my rocks off, let me have an orgasm. And it's no longer that. It's really a prayer language.
Yeah, it's no longer performance-based and goal-orientated, right? It's an actual beautiful divine dance of the senses, and just, I guess, conveying love to one another, rather than, you know, I'm just doing this, as you said so eloquently, to get off.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, Michael, have you got anything else to add to this subject that we haven't touched on before we move on to something else?
You know, I would just encourage, you know, I have a men's group that we're reading a great book called To Be a Man. And we were just last night talking about the challenge that we, you know, to challenge ourselves to be better men. And the challenges, and the challenge meaning specifically going into your wounds, going into your core wounds, going into the dark side of your nature. You know, it's facing your dragons, you know, and to not bring shame. You know, Dr. David Hawkins, who wrote Power versus Force, as many of us are aware, you know, shame and guilt are sitting there at the low end of the spectrum. But just to have an understanding and to be intimate, you know, to be aware of your dark and your light. You know, I'm not one to dwell. I don't want to dwell in the shadows and dwell in the traumas and dwell in the wounds, but not bypass them and find out where those, you know, again, what Rumi said, where the light gets in. Go into those places, you know, where you find yourself not on your best behavior. And why? You know, what is that little child wanting to know? You know, I know for me, I was a child, as I shared in some of my story here, was looking for love. Just will dad love me? Will mom love me truly? Will these powers love me? And we seek them outwards until we don't, until we come home to the heart and see that love is there, has been the whole time, and we never left home, as Dorothy said. But yeah, just be courageous in finding yourself somebody you can talk to that's not going to judge you, that's going to understand you. You know, whether it's your beloved, you know, it's a powerful conversation. And if you can get intimate with her, it'll change the trajectory, you know, of your relationship. And if you really truly want to be better, it'll make her trust you a lot more.
I think what you brought into the conversation around guilt and shame is a really important aspect to focus on, because I'm sure we've all, you know, been through some degree of that in our lives. But for those men now sitting in feelings of guilt and shame, as you mentioned, they are rock bottom at the bottom of the frequency scale. What practical tools, tips, wisdom can you bring into this conversation to help men shift out of that frequency and start them spiraling up?
Well, first of all, find somebody you can talk to, you know, whether it's a therapist, a coach, you know, a counselor, a trusted friend, you know, and just ask permission, you know, can we set some time aside? I want to connect to someone. Don't do it alone. Don't go through that alone. The time of the lone wolf is done. We can't do this alone anymore. And so just be courageous enough to talk to somebody if you're moving through and connect. You know, and I've also found in my own life, whenever I've been in those dark places, do something for somebody else. Find a way to serve another. Because what happens is, and there are hostile forces, there are anti-love forces coming in, and they come into our etheric holes, and they come in and they're haunting you. They're telling you you're not worthy. They're telling you that's just not the truth. And getting in service to another, whether it's the homeless or whether it's a pet, you know, whether it's something you can do to give of yourself, it's going to raise your vibration just a little bit more. And I always like to say, when you feel like you're in the darkness, look for the fireflies, look for the glimmers of light. They're there. Just look for them and follow the glimmers of light, follow the fireflies, follow a little, wherever they may be, and just that will get you on a start, and it's not going from, we go back to the emotional scale of Dr. David Hawkins, power versus force. It's not going from grief and despair to joy and bliss. It's just raise it up a little higher. Maybe you just need to get, excuse my French, effing angry. I'm not gonna cuss, but you get really angry. Maybe there's something you haven't dealt with and you kind of suppressed it. And that's okay. It's a time for anger. And there's a time for just neutral. But just try to move up that ladder a little bit. And I find in connecting with somebody and then being of service in some capacity.
Yeah, and I'll drop the link to David Hawkins' book in the description, because I love that book. It's one of the most powerful books I've read in understanding emotions. Now, I love what you said about anger, because anger is above what is it? Being lethargic.
Mm-hmm.
Being lethargic on this scale, and then there's anger. Now, anger then. The emotional impact of anger is to create change, and then you go up into courage, into the levels of the heart. So anger is a necessary step, and I think men and women have been taught to repress it or not
Mm-hmm.
know how to deal with it safely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about anger and your experience it, and what can you say to men about them allowing themselves to feel this anger, to come out of guilt and shame, and how they can express it safely?
Yeah, that's we've got to be cautious because it's fire, and it's the sword, right? It's how do we yield this? But there's such a need for us to, I think of Gandalf when I think of anger. Gandalf the wizard in Lord of the Rings, when he comes to that demon, he just screams and puts the sword down. Thou shalt not pass. Like, you're done. There's a fire. But it's that, how do we, fire is dangerous if it's just let run amok. And so, making sure that we're not going to destroy and hurt ourselves. But I think we men, most of us, are afraid that it's just going to be a fire that's going to rage and consume us. And how to, have that righteous ferocity, that fierce anger that says, no more, no more shall I no more will I debase myself. No more shall I allow a boundary to be crossed. No more, that and I've experienced that anger, to be honest with you, in Cali, in the fierce mother, in that fierce feminine energy that is, it's very interesting how, and it's fueled, we haven't really touched on this, but coming from where I come from, Gemma, I pushed away all masculine power. I didn't distrust. It was abusive. I saw it abuse my mother. I didn't see a lot of men. My stepfather and my real father, they were just horrible men. And so I didn't have a lot of male heroes growing up, besides Yoda, Bruce Lee, and maybe Clint Eastwood. I don't know, but and those aren't the greatest examples. But I didn't have real models of masculine power, and so I kind of shunned it. I grew up more closer to my mother and to a more feminine energy, and so that was a gift of my story. But all of us understanding how we can tap into that ferocity, that fierce anger that says, no more injustice in my own life, in the life around me. And I heard a really unfortunate quote that most men, I wouldn't say men, humans, they want to feel safe rather than be free. And I think to be free requires some ferocity. It requires some creativity, it requires some really intentionality. But I think that anger to say no more, um, and the gym is a good place to get it out, to go in that gym and work that energy out. But that's something I didn't allow anger in my life for a long time, because I saw it destroy. I saw abuse, and it wasn't something that was safe. but I've allowed myself more these days to allow myself to be angry, and sometimes I slip into rage. I've slipped into that rage, and that's the aggressive part of it. But anger is healthy. Anger is righteous. Anger is good at the right time.
What happens when men don't express that anger and keep it within their body?
You get sick, you get tumors, you get dis-ease, because it is energy. And if it's not rightly expressed and it has a creative outlet or a way to put it into action in a healthy, constructive way, it's going to back up, and it's going to create all kinds of dis. When we say dis, we mean discord, dis-ease, dysfunction, dis uh, just you just dissed. You've been dissed with when you don't have an expression of it. So it's important, and to not let it explode on those you love. But it's important to have a release valve and to allow that energy, because that's one of the things we talk about in our circle of men. Emotional literacy. Most of us men are just, we're not clear. We're numb to the emotions, and so we're not sure if it's anger, if it's depression, and it's being able to work that through. But it's important to get it out.
Well, this is fascinating now, this last bit you brought into the conversation. So how do men practice identifying what they're feeling? How do they step into and expand their emotional intelligence?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's awareness. It's going to start there. I mean, it's like anything. You just got to spend some time exploring that side. That's that side of us that, it. Dr. Robert Augustus Masters, great book for all the men that are out there. To Be a Man, a guide to true masculine power. Yeah, we'll put that in the link. We've been told to be a man. Shut up, stop crying, toughen up, be a man, be stoic, be heroic, and don't cry, don't feel. And science is showing us that the heart, the energy and motion, is the power of creation. There's thought, and then there's emotion, and the emotion is the rocket fuel to manifestation. And if we're half cocked in life, we're not tapped into our superpower, which is our heart energy, which is the power of emotion. It's just one of those things we have to cultivate a desire and an awareness of going, okay, here's this mountain behind Gemma. There's this great mountain. Go discover it. Go get to it. Go touch it. Get in some conversations. Get in some great books. There's a great book by Dr. Masters called Emotional Intimacy or Emotional Literacy. I'm not sure, one of those, but he's written 14 books on men's work. An incredible author, in my opinion, and a men's work leader. But start tapping in. Just start asking the questions. What am I feeling? Get quiet. It could be a range of various things. I mean, it's not ultimately, it's a fear of something. I'm upset. Things aren't going my way. I'm irritated. I'm agitated. But there's a lot of spectrum of emotion, and it's like a fine wine. Like I met a wine. What do they call them? Those who the name is escaping me, but somebody who knows wine, and they do wine tasting all the time. And this man had spent 30 years in the fields in Italy, and he still said, at 30 years, I'm still scratching at the surface of the complexity of wine. Like the emotional field is a rich, and I think we as humans on this planet are still understanding emotional literacy and EQ and how important that is to our life. And I don't come here as a master. I come here as one who's on this path of understanding that we got to feel to heal. We've truly got to feel to heal. We've got to feel it in our body. Us men, we have been told it's a foreign, mysterious land of feelings. And it's okay. It's okay not to know. It's okay not even to have a name for it, but just feel it and to allow it to, sloppily or skillfully, but just have somebody you can talk to about, and maybe somebody can help you.
Yeah, and such an important aspect. And I love how, you brought the heart into that, because this is what this is all about. And through my awareness of the feminine heart, but also my intuitive awareness of the masculine heart. So let's expand this conversation. What's the difference in your own experience from when you were living through the mind to now when you're aware that you're living through the heart and the mind integrated? How does that change a man? Why is that important?
Well, I think it's important because it's wholeness, right? It's your holy self, HOWHO. And I remember seeing, and maybe you've seen it too, but and your listener who's listening, there was a great little clip of a cartoon before the movie Inside Out, and it was a little mind that was just working and did the data entry, and but there was a part of me that wanted to go to the beach and just be and play. And um, let me just take that back. Let me just erase that, cancel, edit, delete that. The movie The Never Ending Story is a great example of this. You know, when we're in our mind, you know, if you remember the story, young Sebastian's father, you know, young Sebastian lost his mom and he's in pain. And his father's telling him, just go, just study, do what you need to do. And he ends up wanting to go into a basement of a school and read this story and just get into his divine imagination. And he struggles because he's been asked by the princess to just say my name, give me a new name. He can't. I got to keep my feet on the ground. I got to keep logic. I got to keep doing the daily. And we're being invited. I mean, we've all heard it, from the head to the heart, the longest journey that is. But coming into this place and it's not to shame the mind, it's not to shame the masculine. You know, I was a man who didn't. It's hard for us men these days, because especially a white straight male, especially here in America, you know, we're becoming the minority and the one since the Me Too movement and what's going on. And it's like we men have shamed ourselves. I shamed myself for being a man. And it's important that we come into that other part of us and allow the mind and the heart to do their dance. You know, as you have the sacred mountains that you talk about, they're beautiful. You know, this is what, for me, 11:11 is that. This is when a man and a woman, when my beloved Heather's and her masculine and feminine, when I'm balancing my masculine and feminine, my head and my heart, her head and her heart, and we come together in sacred union, we become a transformative portal to God's power, love, and wisdom. And gosh, it's such a big question, Gemma. Hopefully, I guide me if I'm steered off. But you know, learning how to feel and think. You know, I spent some time, as I said, as a practitioner, understanding the mind. You know, in the Hermetic laws, all things are mental. That's the first thing we understand. The mind of God and the Father principle and the masculine principle is this intelligence. It's this beautiful energy, right? And then there's the information of the feminine, of just how that works together. You know, I mean, we've been talking about this forever, for a long time, but it's so holy, as I would say. It's important that we take that journey to our heart and understand what's going on. You know, there's a great little story. I don't know if you want to put this in the description, but there's the knight in rusty armor. It's a little book, and it's a man's work book, but it's about this knight that's just trapped in his armor, and he's been crying because he can't get out of it, and it's rusted, and his family can't. They want to see who he is beyond his armor. And I found that there's great power in taking your armor off and saying, you know what? When I say I am weak, I'm actually strong. When I open my heart, I say, there I am, there you are. And we don't have to take on, we can take off our mask, we can take off our armor and show our real authentic self. And we're still learning what that is. Who are you? Who am I? But not the personality, the ego ideal that we think we are. Like, I just want to, Ram Dass is one of my heroes. You know, he's got a great film called Becoming Nobody. My path to salvation is to become nobody. And then I'm everybody. It doesn't matter. You know, I'm Jason Michael Powers. And I'm not. I'm more than that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Jason, Michael, we've got about just over half an hour left, and I could go off on already so many different topics, but I really feel it's important that you share what you feel needs to be brought into this conversation. So where would you like to start?
Well, I think for me, my piece of peace on earth is relationship, Gemma. I found that, we talked about this is from karma to dharma. I don't say that I had a failed marriage. I don't call it that. I don't even call her my ex-wife. I just don't like that. That's the mother of my son. And we're friends and we're soulmates to this day. I honor her. I truly value who she is as a mother to my son, and I respect her as a woman on the planet. And and having even a relationship with my son's mom, there's the journey to the heart lies in how we do relationships. How we do relationship is how we do everything. If you're struggling in your relationship, Heather and I often talk about it. There's a great quote from the Bible. And I made peace with the Bible. There's some really good gems, Gemma. There's some good gems in there. And as a DJ, I've been DJing weddings for 30 years. I hear this all the time at weddings, and you've heard it over and over. 1 Corinthians 13. What is love? Love is patient, kind. It's not abusive. It's not easily angered. And it always trusts, it always hopes, right? But before that, it goes, if I have tongues of angels and I can move mountains and I could see the fathoms, and I go and I take it to you, you could read the Akash, and you have relationships with angels, and you're psychic, and you can do all these things, and you're such a superpower in the world, but you have not love. It's worth nothing. And how we do relationship is how we do everything, because everything on this ship of relations is about relationship. Our relationship ultimately with ourself, with our own heart and our mind, the presence of love itself inside of us, and in the presence, whether you're in a beloved relationship, community, work, father, mother, son, brother, sister, how we're doing relationship. And I think we have a lot of work to do in that. And that's my passion in this time in my life, is the day to day, is how I can allow myself to love and be loved in greater capacity. And when I open, because it's like I often talk about, do you have cocktail straw mentality? The little cocktail straws. That's only how much good, how much love can come in, because we have stories. We've been abused. We've been betrayed. We've got wounds. And yes, 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 we all have. But we're not bound by our past. We're not bound by the past in any capacity. And if we could allow ourselves, and this is where the mind and the heart come into play, because the heart feels wounded. And that's where the true adult, I truly believe, comes in and goes, you know what? It's safe. It's safe to be loved. It's safe to love. And opening up that cocktail straw to be a funnel where we can increase the capacity, keep increasing capacity to love and be loved. Greater love can you give, and more can you receive. A lot of us are really good at giving and giving and giving, supporting and serving, but how are you at receiving? How are you at receiving compliments? How are you at receiving that? It's important, that when I give a gift to Heather, I want to feel like she receives it, and that's a whole long conversation, and there's a whole bunch in there, and that's the journey, and that's where my passion these days is to cultivate that. Go through when you're at a breakdown, when the relationship's breaking down. It may not be time for divorce. It may be, and divorce is not bad. One of my spiritual mentors said, 2 of the sacred cows we have in this life is that 1, marriage is forever, and 2, that divorce, you're a failure. And it's not the truth. Marriage isn't always forever. Seasons and reasons, right? And so if your relationship, and it, but if you've exhausted everything and you've done, but if you're at that breakdown, there might be a breakthrough moment coming through. And to search for the gold in that, like, what's going on? Why is there this friction going on? And can we work it? And if you've got a partner that's willing to work with you in that, God bless you. That's the gold. And I know that, Heather and I are going on almost 10 years together, and it's getting sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. And I know it's because of the work we continue to do internally and externally.
This is such an important point, because I know in my own personal experience, any relationship breakups that I've been through is because I was willing, this is my perception, but I was willing to do the work and wanting to grow and evolve where I felt that he wasn't. And I think I can talk for a lot of women here. So let's explore this topic of, us women often feel that the men just shut themselves down and aren't willing to maybe have the conversation, do the emotional work, do the shadow work, go to a therapist, do whatever it takes. Can you please speak to men and man to man and explain what an important piece this is?
It's huge. And we just talked about it last night, Jim. I mean, men are dealing with so much shame. There is unprocessed, unannounced, unacknowledged shame. And when the marriage is at its place, or the sex life isn't going well, or maybe financially they're feeling like, we're supposed to be the providers, right? We're supposed to be the ones. And sometimes we're in a struggle, and there's so much shame that men are dealing with. And they find themselves, well, I need a therapist. I remember hearing a man who was doing therapy with this business, and they're like, can you not call it psychotherapy? Can you call it executive coaching? Because there's just a stigma to psychotherapy. And we just have to change the story about that. We just really have to go, it's okay not to know. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be at a place where you don't know. And to ask that question, who can know for me? Because I don't know right now. I don't know what to do. And to seek counsel, to seek help, to seek a friend, and talk about this thing and not go through it alone. Because we men, we tend to, toughen it up and bear through it. And we're just not alive in that place where it's okay to fall apart in the place of another. I spent years in the Christian church. I watched men and women just say, here I was in the world, and here is who I really am. In the rooms of recovery, I've witnessed many men tell who they really are. And I don't think, I've cultivate that in my life. And I think it's important to come into spaces and faces where you can go, I just want to be real, and not act like I got it together. And there's no shame in that. And so having the courage to face that, and that's a sad, like when my awakening began in 2001, when the towers went down, I found myself in meditation rooms. I found myself in book studies, because I wanted to go down this path. And I was a rare man. I've been a rare man. I'm not one, there was all women in these rooms. And where are the men? Where are my brothers at? I always say. And so I said, look, I'm just going to create it. And I started creating circles for men. And not the typical, no judgments on some of the men's work out there, but it's not about getting in a ring and fighting and going in the wilderness. It's about, my men's circles are about coming in your heart and opening up your heart and going, look, it's okay to face your shadows. That's the most courageous work you can do. That's the hero's journey, is coming into the darkness of your own heart and facing the little child, the little boy. There's a little boy inside of us that's wanting to go, I just want to cry. I want to be okay. I want to hug. I want to be loved. It's okay, because we all want that. It's not just a woman thing to feel. It's a human thing to feel. It's a human thing to feel all of it. I found myself, I was writing out something, I'm afraid of extreme happiness. I was like shocked. I don't like to go to this, like, I just try to stay even killed, but I know for myself, like, wow, what is that? I'm afraid to get really giddy. And I think it's because of the child. I didn't want to get disappointed. I didn't want to get, we're going to Disneyland. Oh, we can't do it. We can't afford it. Oh, bum, bum, bum. That letdown. So the most heroic thing you could do is go to therapy. That's the most heroic thing you could do. And I will say this. I know you're familiar with the Ho'oponopono. And that's something we give to our clients. Like when I found those 4 phrases, to look into the beloved, into the eyes of my wife, whenever we've been in a tear or something's gone on in the relationship, just to look at her and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry for the ways I spoke to you. I'm sorry that I didn't, think about you first. Please forgive me from your heart. Please forgive me. Thank you. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for loving me beyond my imperfections. I love you. Those four phrases, having the courage to say that, whether you're with a therapist or just with each other, you'd be surprised what that will do.
Yeah, and I do know, I have read a book about that. And what I did with that is just to have those four phrases as a mantra in my mind for just subconscious healing. And I did that. I was very aware of it for, I don't know, at least a few days, solid on. And yeah, I just loved how that did a huge shift in me, just like self-forgiveness, self-love, self-gratitude, self-honor. So, whether we're saying it to ourselves or someone else, and we might write that also in the description below because that was so powerful. Jason, Michael, when you're doing your men's circles, what would you identify as the greatest wound that our men are carrying today?
Hands down, shame, shame, guilt, shame, whether it's, most men, I would say, are dealing with pornography. A lot of men are. And, I'm experiencing men for the first time. They're going, I've never talked to anybody about this. And for the first time, they're talking about it. And so there's this undercurrent shame. You can feel it, but it's kind of accepted. It's kind of norm. And so no one's really talking about it. So um, I would say that is the biggest, and one of the things I say to the men in the circle is that we're not here to compare. Men compare a lot, and we all compare, but men are comparing each other all the time. My big bank account, my big car, my big job, the trophy wife, look what I do. What do you do? What do you do? We don't talk about what we do. Who are you? I want to know, who are you? What are you passionate about? What do you ache for? Not about what are you comparing, because the ego wants to compare. I'm either greater or lesser than. And so we talk about that in the men's circles. We're not here to compare. We're not here to compete, on better or greater. Not here to convert. Men tend to convert each other. Look what I know. Look what I know. Look what I know. Do you know what I know? And so it's a place of and conquering. We're not trying to conquer one another. Conquering, comparing, competing. It's about connecting. And so that the biggest common thread, I would say, is that place that it's okay just to listen and be. You don't need to have the answers. Men tend to want to have all the answers for everybody. I talk about, we're not here to crosstalk with another man. A man shares, that's his wisdom. And you don't need to give advice. You tend to want to give advice pretty clearly, solve the problem. But I think, shame and unspoken shame, where you just don't feel like you're living up to what it means to be a man, what that even means nowadays. Um, we're I think we're still redefining that. We're witnessing in the days, years to come, a rising masculine, a men of the heart, that are not afraid to cry. They're not afraid to feel. They're protectors of the sacred energy, and they're present fathers. It's sad to me of how many men didn't get told "I love you" by their dads, that they didn't know how to do that, and it's generations. I don't think so much in these new generations, but um, just being able to, and that emotional literacy, I think, is that piece that's missing, is how to it's kind of foreign land in how to feel. Um, and so there's baby steps that we're doing. But I think I'm seeing men. Heard just yesterday, one of the men that's in my group, he said to his wife, for the first time in years, he loves her. And I was just in tears. I was like, there you go. Just to have a man and he's dealing with his shame. He's going, I'm seeing my shame. And he's honoring himself. And he's able to talk about things he hasn't been able to even know how to do that. And I think we just need to have more men's circles all over, no matter what. Like what I did, I didn't need to do, it's not a big thing. I did not charge thousands of dollars to be part of this group. I just said, I looked for a spot and said, look, we're going to read a book together. We do a 7-minute meditation in the beginning. We talk about our hits and pits. We talk about what's present for us. And then we read the book and we talk about what's going on and we share from our heart. And it's really potent and it's really powerful. And I think that those should be just plopping up all over. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. Just do it.
And where do you hold your men's circle, Jason Michael, in case anyone's close by?
Yeah, if you're in Ventura County or Los Angeles County, it's a place called the Newmont Spiritual Center. It's a beautiful center. Two friends of ours out in Agora, California, every Tuesday night for 90 minutes, give or take. And we just started it 2 months ago. I did one in the park before, but I'm proud of what's happening. It's a small but mighty crew, and it's growing. And we had a young man who's 26, spent time in prison, spent time in rehab, been harming himself, and he felt safe. He felt safe to express his heart, and cultivating that safety where men. That's not because if men, again, if you don't have a 12-step, if you're not doing church Bible studies, where are men going? To talk to other men about what's going on. And we men need to talk. We need to connect to other men and say, wow, you're going through the same thing I am. I didn't know. I thought I was alone. Most men think they're alone in their own thoughts and their own troubles, and you're not. And my prayer is that men find each other, and the time of the lone wolf is done. We have to connect to our tribe of men. And men need men's work. Heather and I do great combo with couples, but then we break apart. We work with the man and we work with the woman, and we bring that specific medicine that we have for each other.
And so I'm interested now in what us women can do to help our men when they're going through whatever they're going through. Maybe we're missing our greatest power of how we can help. What would you say to women that say, how can we help our men?
Thank you for asking that. There's a true science of healing. Yeshua ben Joseph, the great Jesus the Christ teacher, he's one of my heroes still to this day. And he was able to see the perfection. He didn't see sickness. And so when you're looking at your men, though they might be struggling, call them forth, see them in their highest, and communicate them to see them, because they're feeling shame. They're feeling not enough. And so when they hear it, if they don't feel like I think every man wants a cheerleader at some point, at some level, that you believe in me. Even though I might be struggling financially, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to hunt, babe. I'm going to get out there and get it. Like one of my moments, I've often said to Heather, if you've ever seen the movie 300, and King Leonidas is about to go to war and take his 300 men, and she says, "Don't come back until you are on the shield." Like, don't come. Like, she supported him in his quest, and she knew who he was and how he served. And check yourself, because a man wants freedom. He wants to be able to go in and out that door, and he's going to come back. And he requires. But if you're holding on for dear life, you're seeking that. That's a little bit of codependency, right? So that place of trusting that he's going to come back, he's coming in, he's going out there, and that's what we men need to do. We need to cultivate that safety and that security and that guardianship of that. But I think for them to see them in their greatest, to call them forth in your mind's eye, and patience. Us men have a lot of work to do. We're turning the Titanic, and we're learning to get into our hearts. And I can say that I've learned so much about the word grace with my own beloved. She has so much grace, patience, and that higher vision of him. See us men as a collective. there's been too many. It's broken my heart to feel we men, like as a spiritual man, I beat down the masculine, in my own heart of going, where is that in me? But calling forth and allowing us men, see us rising, see us as protectors, see us on the planet guarding the sacred, and it will be so. It is done unto you as you believe. If you can see it and truly believe it in your beloved, you can see him. He will come forth, and you will cultivate a way of communication and a way of engagement that's not nagging him and tearing him down and telling him where he's already telling himself, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough. And that will do a lot of beautiful things, I believe.
Oh, beautiful message. Thank you, Jason Michael. Did you have anything else that needs to be brought into this conversation, or shall I ask a question?
I don't have anything pressing right at the moment.
Okay. There was something you said right early on in our interview about, if I'm correct, being fearful of women or being scared of women, or so let's explore this. As a woman, I'd like to know what were you fearful of, scared of?
Well, I can say as a child, I mean, I think growing up, I always had a girlfriend. I always had a girlfriend. It was always, but they were a great mystery to me. As we men, women are a mystery to us, and as they should be. I think that there is something beautiful about the mystery of the feminine that can't be put in boxes and can't put labels on. And I've learned to be okay. But I think that mystery, I think we humans tend to fear the unknown just naturally. That's why we stay safe. But I think that's the primal place of and just wanting to be loved by a woman, and the fear of rejection, I think, played in that. And I think that those keep men safe, and then not going after the true prize. Maybe you're single, brother, that you're listening, and you know who that is. Be brave, and you never know, because I could not. I had no game in the clubs and the bars and the supermarkets or any place that I go. I had nothing. I was terrified of that first initial contact. If Heather did not send me a message and come, women have pursued me, to be honest with you, in my life. I've not been, because I'm also sensitive. I'm not that one to chase, to be that pursuer, because I think women are clawed after a lot, and so I would tend to just play cool. But and because it's, as I shared, at 11 years old, I had such an addiction early on to pornography, and so the adoration of the woman, and that there's a whole bunch of different things I think that go in there, but it's the other creature, it's the creature that's different than you, and she's phenomenal, and you feel the feelings, and I'm talking from a straight male, obviously, perspective, heterosexual, but there's that desire to be loved and that mystery. I think those were the things that would to answer that question.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. I was interested also what you said about the initial dance of men and women getting to know each other, and you were saying that Heather first contacted you, and there's a big I guess push in the polarity movement that says that the masculine needs to initiate first. And us women, we're a little confused here as to, okay, do we just sit looking pretty like a little honeypot and wait for the masculine to, I guess, penetrate our field? Whereas you're obviously, a beautiful, healthy, grounded masculine, and you're saying a bit in the contrary there. Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, well, it's my reality. It's my experience. I don't have any religious ideology about it. I just, I experienced where, Heather sent me a message and said, I'm coming to LA, and when I see you, I'd like to kiss you. And I was like, yes, because I did not, and I think, going back to it, we all have masculine. Yes, the masculine. There's something about that, but um, I've always thought beautiful women are just being pursued all the time. You know, like I don't want to be another one of those. I worked in Hollywood. I worked with celebrities. Celebrities are being constantly pursued and wanted something from, and I'd always play it cool with celebrity. Like if our life, got into a relationship, we'd cool, but I'm not going to pursue you because I want a relationship with you. So I'm different. I'm wired differently in that way. But my experience was that a huge blessing. Thank God Heather did that, because we're here almost 10 years later. And but I think it goes both ways. I think if you're a woman and you see a man, that you have some interest, and you're desiring something, say something. Don't wait for that. Why wait for your good? Go get your good. And I think it's a human thing. I don't think it's a masculine feminine thing. I understand. I understand a little bit of the polarity teachings, but I'm not your traditional male, and I'm a masculine man that's healing and integrating more masculine energy from my own wounding of the distortion of that, and so that's been my experience of it.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you for that. I obviously went a little bit off track there with staying on the masculine path, so I'll bring it back now. You spoke about freedom and that the masculine is a pursuit of freedom. How would you define freedom in a healthy masculine?
Hmm. Hmm. Freedom is such a responsibility, right? It's I think freedom is a responsibility. Richard Rudd, one of my great heroes and authors, we love the Gene Keys, and been diving deep into the Venus sequence, the golden path within the Gene Keys, and he talks a lot about this um, idea that what man wants is freedom, but that freedom to be who he is in all of his splendor, within reason, obviously not being harmful or hurtful to you, but that place where he's free to be himself, and he's not confined to playing a persona or a personality. That freedom to be, I'm a goofball at times. I love to be, and if I felt like I couldn't be goofy, I wouldn't feel my freedom. you know um I love to play a video game here and there. If I didn't have that freedom, just go, look, it's okay. But that freedom within, and being responsible with your freedom, not being abusive to the freedom. I think that's something we are learning still, especially in our country, um, about freedom really is. It's a great responsibility. Um, but that sovereign choice to do and be and feel what you choose and want to be at any moment. Um, within Yeah, I just, when I say that, I go, that's not to be irresponsible with your freedom. I feel like that's what is coming up for me, is that there's responsibility that goes with freedom. you know yeah, we here in this country want the freedom to bear arms, but it's not to go hurt another, right? Don't take away my freedom. um that freedom to speak my mind and my heart, yes, but may it be constructive, may it not destroy another. um and so it's a big topic. I mean, freedom is in relationship. I think it's just in your own heart to be who you are to be authentically. In relationship, I think it's important.
What came up for me as you were saying that is it a matter of, with this freedom and responsibility, I love how you brought that into it, is it a matter of freedom as service to others instead of my own personal freedom at the cost of another's? It's how can we all be free? Is that what
100%, 100%. Yes, I think my freedom is hinged on your freedom. There is no other you. We are one. I can't be free at the expense of you. That's not true freedom. That's not true freedom. In truth, in reality, it's not. As one goes, so goes the collective. I love the Ubuntu movement, that Ubuntu feeling, like it's just we rise as one. And so if one of us isn't free, we're not truly free. Um, and that goes for our relationship. If one of us feels the freedom to do and be something in the relationship, the other is having to confine and be a role or be something specific, that's not true freedom. And it's important that both parties or all of us be free. But and freedom as a man, we're still learning, because we're not free. We're bound to roles. We're bound to ideals. We're bound to our personality. We're bound to our job. We're bound to even a mission. Let go of what you think you're supposed to be. Be who you are and allow it to unfold. I came to LA at 19 years old to be the next Tom Cruise. I thought I was going to be this big actor. And life has taken me on such a journey, but I've always felt free to decide. I'm free to decide now. I'm not bound. Oh, I said I was going to do this and be this person. It's like something else is bubbling up. And that freedom to allow that to bubble up, to freedom to allow, it even affects how you're a father, how I'm a father. The freedom to allow my son to be who he is and allow his beautiful soul to be, not what I'm wanting him to be.
So good. Thank you. Jason Michael, we'll wrap up now. First of all, where can people find you, please? And then after that, I'm going to ask you to deliver a final message to men.
So you can find me at thepowersoflove.com. That's the website of Heather and I, where we do individual coaching and relationship coaching. You can find me on Facebook, Jason Michael Powers, Instagram, Jason Michael Powers. All the links will be below. And reach out, drop us a message. We're definitely, there's a lot of good stuff coming on the horizon.
Thank you. Final message to men. What would you like to say?
Don't be afraid of the silence. Gosh, that's such a, there's like, huh. And that's what's coming up is just quiet. It's okay not to know. It's okay not to know. But let's feel. Let's come. Let's tune in. Get quiet, get still, observe, be a good listener, and talk less. I'm learning to do that. When I was in the hospital for 21 days, well, not 21 days, 10 days, the whales came and visited me. And the whales said, come to the deep. Come be with us. Just that quiet, dark, deep waters. And don't be afraid to go in the shadows. Face your dragons. That's the true hero's journey. And don't stop believing. Don't stop believing in magic. Don't stop believing in your imagination. Life doesn't have to be this linear place. The nothing, as we go back to the never-ending story, the nothing came and destroyed Fantasia because the collective stopped believing in the power of the imagination. And Neville Goddard, who wrote many different books, but he calls it the divine imagination. That's where God dwells with, in that divine imagination, where all creative possibility is. And so I would say, brothers, just connect to another man that you feel that you can trust, and have a check-in partner, have somebody you can talk to. And if you're a brother out there and you're waiting to look for a men's group, start a men's group. Get a book. Find Dr. Robert Augustus Masters or something. There's a great book called The Warrior, the Lover, the Magician, and the King. It's a great another book to go into, and the 4 archetypes of what it means. But, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. Be easy, be graceful upon yourself. And love yourself deeper than you ever have. Because you are amazing.
Thank you so much, Jason Michael. I've loved this conversation. I felt your heart. I felt your authenticity and your humility. And thank you so much. and
Thank you, Gemma.
honor and respect you, and lots of love to Heather. So
Yeah, we send you our love. All right. Ciao for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Everyone, if you could please like, share, subscribe, and I'll be back in another couple of days with another episode of Heart Warriors. Stay on one moment, please.